unfortunately, people in Semenanjung have this MIC syndrome. Not Samvelu, not Malaysian Indian Congress, but Malay, Indian, Chinese. And they think the whole world is Malay, Indian, Chinese. Sorry to say. But actually, just to let you know, there are more than 120 ethnic groups in our country. And we don't even appreciate it. Yeah? Alright. And don't forget the Orang Asal. Okay, basically I want to cover just three things. The context for the social inclusion agenda, why we need the social inclusion agenda, the case for it, and some of the key features so that you understand what we're doing. Okay, this one I will definitely give a prize to anybody who can tell me where this thing is from, other than those who are from MCLM and those who have attended before presentation before. Can you please tell me?
July 9th.
Our nation, Malaysia, being dedicated to achieving a greater unity of all her peoples, to maintaining a democratic way of life, to creating a just society, ensuring a liberal approach, building. Where is this from, this?
July 9th.
Come on, young man. You're in standard? Form 2. You also don't know. But if I tell you, kepercayaan kepada Tuhan, kesusilaan dan kesopanan, you know, right? Huh? Okay, that's the problem. This is actually the preamble to the Rukun Negara. 31st August 1970, and 40 years hence, we are all sitting here. Probably some of us go in school and recited it, but don't even know this is the vision that was set for the nation after May 69. And there's nothing wrong. This is an absolutely beautiful document which everybody has forgotten. Alright? So that is the big context in terms of, we will talk about the SI, and this is the original thing in the, after Parliament, 31st August. Okay, MCLM's manifesto also talks about ending the marginalization of not just all Malaysians, but all those who are here, including people who come here as workers as well as refugees and whatever they seek. Okay, so that is the reform agenda. Just to be very clear, when we talk about marginalization, we are just talking about people who have been pushed to the margins, who have a low asset base, meaning low education skills, health, and so on, and this actually denies them chance to have proper employment or education and other opportunities. All right, and there are many, many groups like that. And worst of all, they have very limited access to influencing decision making in power. And one thing I like to emphasize here, disadvantaged groups, the causes are multidimensional. But more important, the cycle is intergenerational, as they say. The father and the parents, the family is poor now. The son will be poor. The son, when he becomes a father, will also be poor, and his son will be poor, and therefore the cycle will never break until and unless we do something about it, and that we require an agenda. And this is basically Rukun Negara. We want an inclusive society where all the people are valued, yeah? Not just we because we think we have more rights than others, all right? And it's our responsibility to make sure. Okay, just before we go into the details, this is very quickly some statistics to understand our country. Population, 27.5 million, of which citizens are 25 million, or non-citizens, that is those who are working here, the migrant groups, for 2.1. And an important number, which is a very low estimate actually, 5% of the population has some form of disability, physical, mental, so forth. Okay, we must understand that. Now, this number I want you to just keep in your head. There are total 6.3 million households in the country. 6.3 million households means roughly times 4 point some members in each household gives you 27 million. Yeah? So remember this number, and Malaysia has now largely become urban. 65% is urban, and 35% rural. And a very important number is the number which you see down there. A median age is 27.6, which means 50% of this 27 million are below 27 years and below. Very young. Ours is a young population, and therefore you must remember, this is fantastic because we have potential to develop them. But if we mess it up, we will mess up many, many generations. Okay? And our education system is, I won't even say, you know. Okay. Now, a median household income is 2,830 a month. Again, the 6.3 million households, 50% of them have income of 2,830 and below. Okay? And this is again important because while we can talk about high income and all that, most of the families, 50% of the families earn below 2,830. Labor force, you know, and we have sizable refugees and asylum seekers. Okay, now I move to the second point. I've given you the big picture. And these are real pictures, huh? These are not the pictures I took from anywhere, but these are real pictures of our people living in conditions like this. So why do we want? What is the case for a social inclusion agenda? There are 3 points. Poverty is still very real for many, many, many people in this country. Income inequality, that means the income between the top 20% of the 6.3 million households and the bottom 40% is very wide. And it is not closed for a long time. And the current system has many, many limitations. So I go to the first point. We call it the poverty story. Has anybody seen these pictures before? No, huh? Okay. This is all part of your Anak Bangsa Malaysia. Please note. Okay, but you must always give in presenting anything, you must give a balanced story. This is the government story. So you better know the government story first before I tell you my story. Okay? The government story is we have done a wonderful, wonderful job. From 1970 to 2009, we have reduced poverty from about 50% to about 4%. In fact, all the world is coming to study how we did it. Okay? Because there are only 250,000 poor households. So what's the problem? Just give them $1,000 each every month and you solve the problem. You know, you just build one bridge less or one tower less, right? But that's not the real issue. And this is the story. Dato' Jeffrey already told you, Sabah, and even the government figures support it. Sabah has the highest percentage of poverty, about 120,000 households. Sarawak, the Sarawak people laugh at me when I say Sarawak has only 27. And these are actual pictures from Sabah and Sarawak for you to see. And this is a very interesting photograph because I took this in Sungai Sebut. Poor people's home, there is an advertisement, bungalow lots for sale. Don't laugh, because these people are going to get evicted in Sungai Sebut. And really bungalows are going to go up there. Don't ask me where they are going to go. Okay? And that picture from the top is from Project M. You see the Barisan national flag flying there? Yeah. Those are actually Filipino people who have now been given blue IC. But this is the conditions they live in. Alright? But anyway, this is a government story because there are only 250,000 households poor. The government is not lying. Because this is how the government calculates. I need to explain this, please bear with me. The government uses a concept called poverty line income for each household monthly. So according to the government, if you are a household in Sabah, you only need $1,048 where you will be considered poor. If you get 1,048 and below, you are a poor household. In Semenanjung, 763, in Sarawak, 912. Monthly income, okay? Alright. And that income is supposed to cover these 8 items. Please be frank with me. How much did you spend yesterday on food alone? Okay? Think about it. 8 items are food, clothing, rent, furniture, medical, transport, education, and recreation. Recreation probably playing bola sepak in the Taman Ipoh or something like Singapore, I think. Alright. So that is how the government calculates poor households. Anybody earning more than 763 in Peninsula, more than 1,048 in Sabah, and more than 912. And household, household means 4, at least 4. Average is 4. Household, okay? Okay. I think rent also you can't pay. So this is how it works out. If any one of you spend more than $5.80 today, I'm going to ask you to give me back the money because I need it. Because the government says you can survive on $5.80 in Semenanjung for those 8 items. How much is one plate of kway in Ipoh nowadays?
$4.
$4 already?
Yeah.
Oh, I see, you all are better than us. In KL is $5 now. Okay. So, this is how they calculate. So, you can't blame them, but they are very transparent. Tell you this is how they calculate. Okay. So now, if we use the government's average poverty line income of roughly 800, you will find they are correct, only 250,000 households. But you will increase it by $200, the number will jump up to 7.3. If you increase it to 1,500 a month, the number will jump up to 21. Remember 6.3 million households. Huh? If you increase it to 2,000, which we think is a reasonable figure for any household of 4.5 people, maybe barely enough, then you will have 35% of households in this country actually struggling. Okay? So you get a picture of what's happening. Now, you know why I said we must give a special prize to Malaysia? Because Malaysia is better than all its countries in terms of poverty. Even Sweden got 5% poverty, you know, because they use the median household income, 50% of that to calculate. Even the US has 15% poverty, but we are
Malaysia boleh.
Malaysia boleh, memang boleh. Okay, so you get a picture of what I'm arriving at. So as far as we are concerned, the real poverty story is the new economic policy and whatever they talked about. And if you remember, the new economic policy has 2 objectives. 1, eradicating poverty irrespective of ethnicity, and 2, restructuring society. So it has failed miserably. Everybody say, oh, people just, but actually it is a problem of the underclass. They just waited for an opportunity and that's why it came out. Alright, and this is your profile. And I want you to concentrate on this number down there in red. What if 40% of your fellow citizens have no school certificate? 52%. No school certificate. About 18% at PMR and about 25% at SPF. So again, our wonderful education system where people don't know the Rukun Negara, which is printed at the back of the exercise book. Okay. Basically, this is the story. 62% of the poor households headed by people with primary education or less. I mean the head of the household has primary education or less. So when the government talks about high income economy, moving towards high income economy, they have to get people from, I believe, India and China and somewhere else to run this economy, because definitely not from here. Okay? But more important, and this is what I talked about, disadvantages being multidimensional. Most of these families have problems. Okay? They have low income, low levels of education, high level of unemployment, nutrition, health, whole host of factors. Alright? And the conditions, please be honest with me, how many of you have actually been to a low-cost flat? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What is the first thing you notice?
Astro dish.
Good. Some more?
Dirty. Garbage.
Rubbish. Smell. Sometimes the leaves are not working. Urine smell.
Yes.
Beautiful conditions to live, right?
Rats.
Cracks everywhere. But most important, the noise level is so high in these flats, there is no way these children are going to study. I want to share with you a story. I started a project in 2005 in a place called Desa Mantari in Sunway. Just because I realized that these children do not have a place to actually do any kind of schoolwork because they live in these pigeonholes. Rented one of the flats, just put a bit of aircon, put a 1 or 2 tables, thinking, in my naivety, thinking maybe 20, 30 kids will come at most to use this place as a reading room, do their homework. First day of opening, I nearly fell out of the flat. 300 kids turned up. Maybe some came for the aircon, I don't know. But I tell you, they genuinely came because they wanted a place to just sit and do their homework. And remember one thing, many things was achieved with that project. It's about 6 years old. I've handed it over to somebody else to run it because Harris Ibrahim has pulled me away to do other things. But important thing was, these were all people from, you remember Dr. Jeffrey, the Taman Medan incident in 2001? These were families from there, all placed in this Desa Mantari flat. At one stage, frankly, the Malay kids and the Indian kids don't mix. They don't even talk. But once you open our center, kids are kids. They come in, they start mixing, they start teaching each other. So no need to have Ministry of National Unity, you know. We just do it this way. But we build all these beautiful low-cost flats, so outside looks beautiful, because once in a while they paint it, you know. Without even thinking about putting a proper reading room or a library or something there. And we expect that with one stupid playground with some swing and whatever there, that's it. We have solved the problem. The Ministry of Local Government and Housing should be thinking through this problem and say, we need to give people decent places to at least do some reading. And then every now and then they'll say, make reading a culture. Membaca budaya kita. Budaya siapa? You see? So I'm just giving you an idea. So next time you look at these people coming from this, sorry to say it's a big joke because they don't even know what's happening. Right. I just want to share one example with you how there's misallocation of resources. And all of you are equally guilty here. Social assistance program means welfare and education. Education means scholarship, bursary, whatever. Okay? Support for education. And the households, you remember I told you about, is now divided into bottom 20%, next 40, 60, 80, and this is the top 20. Do you see any difference? Scholarships, that's scholarships. The blue line is scholarships. Top 20 get almost the same as the bottom 20. You think that's fair? People who can afford also get scholarships. Maybe you need to give to those who are very cream, but not to everybody. But so this is where even welfare assistance goes to the top 20%. 25% of the budget for social assistance goes to the top 20 and the bottom have only 44. If you are a just and fair government, I think all the money should be going to the bottom and the middle. Alright? And this is where Malaysia stands in terms of giving benefits to the poorest 20%. Slightly better than Egypt, Jordan, Venezuela, and so forth, but nowhere compared to Argentina and places like that where they really focus their benefits to the bottom 20%. believe it or not, there are still a lot of people without water and electricity. And this is such a rich country. Anyway, that's the story. So in summary, 40 years of NEP has really failed. And it's our citizens, it's our fellow citizens. If we continue to ignore this problem, it's going to come back and get us all. I love this picture. You're laughing now, but it happens to you. Don't worry, I know you're all rich people. Okay. Okay, I just put the last part of it. The way forward is not this way. You put a signboard and no road. The way forward is we need to solve this problem. We need to break this intergenerational transmission of inequality. And we can't do it with NEP type policies or affirmative action, which is biased. We can't do it because we need to break that mold. Alright? And it has to be based on the real and felt needs of the marginalized communities. And these are all real pictures. I really don't know how to tell you. I've gone past the state of crying now. Because unless you have some power to do something, but all of us combined can do something. Okay? What we want is a more just society. Just as we declared in 1970 in the Rukun Negara. Okay? And who should we concentrate on? We should concentrate on the poor households, the low-income households, vulnerable individuals and groups. Anybody seen this movie?
Dalam botol.
Dalam Botol. No, huh? You all are very nice people. Huh? Anybody know what LGBT stands for? Don't know also. I tell you what happened to lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender. They are all over the place, but we always ignore them. They are human beings too, you know. Think about it. If by some quirk of some genetic this thing, you could have also landed in that way. Alright? So think about it. So these are the three policy thrusts which we think we should do, is to empower the marginalized and have a social safety net for vulnerable individuals. As I told you, 5% of the population cannot live or work independently. We need to take care. All societies will have them and we need to take care of them. Alright? But the amount of money that goes to them is pathetic. You're a disabled person living on your own and the government gives you something like 300 ringgit a month. I think taking the wheelchair and trying to get to a hospital is a very big issue. I mean, let alone food. Yeah. And the third part, of course, is you have to respect the rights. We all have to come on. Let me be fair here. All of you have at one stage or other had some domestic maid from Indonesia or Myanmar or Cambodia or Sri Lanka or wherever. And we know of many cases where we don't really respect their rights in terms of working hours. As somebody was telling me the other day, the neighbor has 3 cars and all the time all you see is the maid washing the car as if the car needs to be washed every day. Think about it. Huh? But we need to do something about this. So basically we will try and concentrate some of our programs in terms of the target groups, and we hope that these things will help us to at least overcome some of them. We can't be frank here, I mean, we can't really eradicate poverty. Anybody says eradicate poverty, that won't happen. It's like saying we're going to eradicate world hunger. It will never happen. There will always be people joining it, but we need to minimize it, alright, in some form. Okay. And this one I have to ask again now. Otherwise, Dr. Jeffrey will be smiling. Anybody knows this picture or not?
So big.
Wow, not bad. Like Igbo people, I tell you, very good. You yourself like that. You can't go there. Penang people are blur, you know. Okay. So it's the war on marginalization. Alright, we have to. It's a war. It really is a war, and we all have to fight it together. I wish I could get the commission. Alice Ibrahim told me yesterday it was 100 million or 500 million? 500 million, the commission alone.
Yeah.
Well, I can go for a few PhDs after this. Alright, okay. But we need to understand that this is a real war. It cannot just stop there. And for that, MCLM says the only way to do this is we need to establish an independent commission called the Malaysian Social Inclusion Agenda Commission, accountable to Parliament, who will make sure that we conduct a real survey. Poverty mapping has to be done in each of the constituencies to see where the people are really need help. And we need to establish special units. Remember the problems I told you about dysfunctional families? You cannot just do it by once in a while sending the nurse or the dental nurse or the medical nurse to go and solve the problem. You need psychologists, you need people with real special skills to help them. Hey, come on, they are our people, you know. We cannot just condemn them to the flats and pigeonholes. And if you bring them up, the whole society comes up. Then we can talk about being Malaysia Boleh and being an example in the world. Right? And we ensure that the members of Parliament have some work to do. What are they doing now? I don't know. So let them do some real work in helping the poor and the marginalized and be accountable by reporting to Parliament. But this is my last 2 slides. As I say, apart from the MIC thing, we all got to break away from this. You know, poverty is only my community's problem. It is not. I'll tell you why it is not. Remember we talked about households with income of 1,500 and below a month? These are your numbers. What this number tells you is 56% of Malay households earn below 1,500 per month. Orang Asam, Sabah and Sarawak, 63% of households. Chinese households, 35%. And this one, everybody, hey, cannot be lah. All the Chinese very rich, you know. This is a typical stereotype thinking. I can tell you, there are lots of people who say that. But I can take you to places and show you where the Chinese are also in this category. Of course, Indians 43%. But the Hindra people should be because they like to say 90%. I'm sorry, but that's the fact. Because I don't say 90%, they refuse to call me for any more presentation. Okay, and others, the most important, the old Orang Asam of Peninsula, 77% of them are in this category. Okay, and there are only 170,000 Orang Asam, Orang Asli people in Semenanjung. If 77 are there, you know what it means. Alright? Why I give you these statistics, I don't like to give it to you, just to tell you, it is not an ethnic problem, it is a problem of class. We have an underclass in our society, and they are all from everybody. Don't worry, everybody is represented here. It's better than Barisan Nasional. Okay? So next time somebody talks about this issue, please tell them it is not a mono-ethnic issue. It's an issue of class. That's all. If nothing else, you go back tonight. If you talk this language, I'll be most happy. Alright? And then we are going to call Nelson Mandela to head the commission. No, I'm just joking. Let's put the photograph there because we need somebody of his caliber to man this Malaysian Social Inclusion Agenda Commission, to be independent, to make sure that resources are allocated to those who actually need it. Alright? And they will have to set up policies and do reporting to Parliament. These are the things we are proposing that we have if the right parties take over the federal government after G30. So this in a nutshell is what we are proposing, that the social inclusion agenda includes citizens and non-citizens. It protects and advances rights of all marginalized. And the policies and programs are based on real and felt needs. And research and evidence is used rather than all kinds of percentages and fighting for so-called my ethnic group stories. All right? And we need to focus, I've covered this part, we need to focus on early intervention and prevention programs. Early intervention means, you know what the statistics of how many people in Malaysia have some kind of mental problem? Out of 10, how many you think have some kind of mental problem?
2.1.
2.1, very specific. But the statistics say, or at least the Malaysian Mental Association or whatever, the professional people say, 3 out of 10 have some kind of mental. It could be simple from depression to severe psychotic cases. But I can tell you that many of them will be found in the bottom 40% group. Yeah? And any of you who have it will probably go to see psychiatrists or the quiet anyway, so no problem. So not to worry. But I think we need to have early intervention programs. Last year's budget, 100 million was given to ROSPA to have a special program called Permata. 100 million to pick up the so-called best, brightest kids and send them to whatever. I'm not interested. Give me the 100 million to help those kids who really require it from the start. Because you will give them an early start with the right nutrition. When they go to school, no issues. I used to tell people, if I was born in this period, I'm a dead duck. Because my own story is different. I come from a family of 8. Probably at that time, most people were in the bottom 40% anyway. The only thing, I lost my father when he was 6 years old, when I was 6 years old, and only thing that saved me was a damn good education. I went to school, a mission school, where the teachers, at least 8 out of 10, I would say, there will always be the average generation, some teachers also good, but 8 out of 10 cared about me and made me study and get to where I am. Okay? So I think we should give that chance to every kid in that bottom 40%. Alright? So I hope, well, this is just a photograph of the kids. I told you about the sector. And these two guys are like that. I don't know where they got it from. But they are going to fight the war on marginalization. Alright? Okay. So with that, I just want to say, Margaret Mead was an anthropologist, don't know that. Said never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So with that, thank you very much.